Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Geraghty.
And welcome, everyone, to the Thursday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. We've got a busy podcast for you today, along with Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. We have good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today. Also want to let you know we're sponsored by ZipRecruiter. And right now, Three Martini Lunch listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/free trial. More from ZipRecruiter later. And Jim, as mentioned, it's a busy day. Let's start with the good martini in a kind of twisted way. This is from Politico. President Donald Trump says he's open to large-scale immigration reform if Republicans and Democrats can reach a compromise. But he forgot the biggest obstacle to a deal, his own policies and the revulsion they're already fueling among Democrats. This is Luis Gutierrez talking now. He, of course, is a Democratic congressman from Illinois and the world's largest supporter of amnesty. Quote, if he, meaning Trump, is serious, he should give us evidence and say, I'm going to stop the deportations. He also said that Trump needs to stand up to his hardline immigration brain trust, meaning Jeff Sessions, who we'll talk about later, Steve Bannon, and Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, whom Gutierrez called the, quote, three principal heads of xenophobia. Jim, if you're getting worried that Trump was getting a little squishy on this, the Democrats have done you a massive favor by basically saying we're never going to deal with this guy.
Yeah, this is a circumstance in which basically Trump is indicating he's willing to make a partial concession to what was considered a hardline stance, at least during the Republican primary. Then during the general election, Trump kind of danced with the idea of a path to legalization, if not path to citizenship, during a conversation with Sean Hannity at a rally. Then he kind of backed away from it. Here is the president now kind of indicating he wants to talk, willing to make a little bit of a movement there. And the Democratic hardliners are saying, no, first you got to stop all the enforcement, right? First, you got to make giant concessions to us before we will even consider talking with you. Did these guys not notice the election results? Right, you don't have the most leverage in this situation. So if you look at this and you're like, oh, here we go. Trump didn't really mean anything he said in the election last year. Everything is negotiable to him. He has endless faith in his own ability to negotiate great deals, and so he's convincing himself that he's going to be just fine, and that he can work something. Well, now we are lucking out. Now we are in a situation in which the president is certainly seems to be, he was open to it. He certainly was talking to it. He certainly wants to do it. But Democrats are going to be so stubborn about this that it's certainly going to be an impediment to reaching an agreement. So from where we sit, this is good news. I am not going to gripe about this. Like deep down, Democrats would get a lot more from Trump if they were smart enough to realize that if you flatter him, you play to his ego, you do all that kind of stuff, you have a much better chance of getting what you want. But, they don't want to do this. They hate him too much. They're too outraged by him. He offends their sensibilities too much for them to say, hey, how can we manipulate these guys and this guy? And, we luck out because of this. The fear, of course, is that someday the president, that the Democrats will wise up and start playing nicer. And then we have to worry about Trump deviating from conservative orthodoxy a great deal more. But for now, we are blessed in our enemies, Greg.
And by the way, if there ever is progress towards immigration reform that seems on the surface like it's good, see where Luis Gutierrez is on it. If he thinks it's really good,
he's a pretty good indicator where you don't want to be.
Yes, it's kind of like some of the folks that were in the Gang of Eight. Oh, Dick Durbin likes it. Oh, and Chuck Schumer. Yeah, I don't think so. Anyway, on to the bad martini now, and let's talk about Jeff Sessions, and let's talk about Russia. Let's first of all go back to Jeff Sessions' confirmation hearing. Here is an exchange between Al Franken, who's on the Judiciary Committee. That could probably be a crazy martini in and of itself, and Jeff Sessions talking about recent reports at that time from CNN that there had been campaign chatter between the Trump campaign and the Russian government before the election.
If there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it.
Well, turns out that actually Jeff Sessions did have contact with the Russian ambassador. The question is to what extent and to what degree did they actually talk about the campaign? One such meeting was at the Republican National Convention, where there were a number of senators and a number of ambassadors, and there were apparently some brief conversations on the side. And there was another meeting where Sessions came across the Russian ambassador between then and the election. So, of course, you've got Democrats saying it's time for Sessions to go, and they're also demanding a special prosecutor. We'll distill it down to Chuck Schumer.
There cannot be even the scintilla of doubt about the impartiality and fairness of the Attorney General, the top law enforcement official of the land. After this, it's clear Attorney General Sessions does not meet that test. Because the Department of Justice should be above reproach for the good of the country, Attorney General Sessions should resign. But whatever one's views are on resignation, the most important thing we must do is ensure the integrity of the investigation.
Interesting point there, Jim. It almost is that Chuck Schumer knows that Sessions is never going to resign unless more shoes drop here, and so he's pushing for the recusal, and it looks like a lot of Republicans are jumping on board that as well. Here's Jason Chaffetz, top Republican on the House Oversight Committee.
I do think he needs to clarify, and I do think he should recuse himself. Absolutely.
And he says that's specifically over his answer to the committee, not necessarily due to his interaction with the Russian ambassador. Here's House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy on Morning Joe.
I don't have all the information in front of me. I don't want to prejudge, but I just think for any investigation going forward, you want to make sure everybody trusts the investigation that there's no doubt within the investigation.
Does that require his recusal, Congressman?
I think it'd be easier from that standpoint, yeah.
Mark Halperin talking to McCarthy there. And then finally, Sessions himself was approached by reporters today getting into his car, and he seems to think this is perhaps the way to go to.
Well, I have not met with any Russians at any time to discuss any political campaign, and those remarks are unbelievable to me and are false, and I don't have anything else to say about that.
What about the cost to recuse yourself from your agency's pro-routine?
Well, I've said that whenever it's appropriate, I will recuse myself. There's no doubt about that.
So, Jim, this is unfolding pretty fast, and it already looks like we're headed towards an apparent conclusion here where Sessions will keep the job, but ultimately recuse himself, although he hasn't said so officially. What do you make of all this?
I was going to say, look, if Jeff Sessions didn't lie in his testimony, if it wasn't outright perjury, it sure as heck was misleading. It sure as heck is an incomplete answer. I'm going to assume that the explanation coming from his people is that, look, this is a routine sort of discussion you have with when you're on the Senate Armed Services Committee. It's not that unusual to meet with the Russian ambassador. And by the second meeting was at a Heritage Foundation gathering at the Republican convention. They're both at the same place. They chat a bit at the party. Neither one of this or anything nefarious or suspicious or anything. And it sounds plausible to me. But when you don't mention this, people are going to suspect that you're covering something up there. You were asked about this and you didn't mention it. Now you can say, oh, Trump, the Franken question was about questions as a Trump surrogate. That slice, as I put in the Morning Jolt today, that's slicing the bologna very thin. Should he probably recuse himself? Sure, why not? It would eliminate this issue. Presumably there's somebody else at the Justice Department who could be trusted to be even-handed and objective and who doesn't appear to have this, I'm just going to say, potential conflict of interest in this sort of thing. The Attorney General is always a tough spot because you're nominated by the President, appointed by the President, confirmed by the Senate, but your job is also to technically investigate the rest of the executive branch if there's wrongdoing going on there. So, yes, Chuck Schumer is, going well overboard when he says, you have to resign. And, I really want Democrats to just give it a list of all Republican and Trump administration officials who you don't want to resign. I'll just assume that you want everybody to resign all the time. You're always outraged. Yes, we got it. But the argument for recusal is starting to gain some momentum here. And again, was the answer a lie? I don't know. It's conceivable he could forget. My colleague Charlie Cook pointed out this morning that Claire McCaskill, the Democratic senator from Missouri, who said, well, if I had met with a Russian ambassador, I'd remember it. And then he pointed out that actually there's twice she has tweeted about meeting with the Russian ambassador in previous contacts. So Maybe you would. Maybe you wouldn't, Claire McCaskill. It's entirely possible. Maybe he didn't remember this. But at this moment he learns of this, Sessions should have come forward and kind of put this out there and at least show a little bit of contrition here. This blanket denial and I just don't like the tone I'm seeing from Sessions. And I think it'd be good if he just recused himself, get the issue out of the way, and we can all move on with this.
Hey, remember yesterday when we were pretty happy with the speech? And you said, enjoy it now because you never know what's going to happen in the next 24 hours?
There you go. We nailed it. Yeah.
So at the moment, Donald Trump is not shopping for a new attorney general, and most likely he won't be anytime soon. But there might be some work being done to figure out who to hire as a special prosecutor and a special investigator, independent counsel into exactly what happened with the Trump campaign and Russia and beyond. So while they're potentially hiring, are you hiring? Do you know where to post your job to find the best candidates? The best candidates. Posting your job in one place isn't enough to find quality candidates. If you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites. And here's why. Because, Jim, I've worked in radio for a long time now, and you need to hire people for different jobs, a lot of weekend shifts. There's a lot of turnover there. I remember one guy who worked for us for a few months, and I should have known there was a problem when he joined our fantasy football league and drafted like 2 or 3 kickers, and some of whom weren't even starters and didn't make the final roster. So he was great to play against in fantasy football. Nice guy, but not all there, and also not necessarily showing up, which is kind of important when you're doing radio work or any job, really. And ultimately, he stopped working for us when he came in late and saw that the boss was covering for him, and he just turned around and left and never communicated with us again. So that's not who you want to hire. You want the perfect hire, and so that's why you should post your job on all the top job sites. And the good news is, now you can.
With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post your job to more than 100 job sites, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with just a single click. You can find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. Just post once and watch your qualified candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. No more juggling emails or calls to your office. You can quickly screen candidates, rate them, and hire the right person fast.
So find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by Fortune 100 companies and by thousands of small and medium-sized businesses. And right now, 3 Martini Lunch listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/free trial. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free trial. One more time, to try it for free, go to ZipRecruiter.com/free trial. Jim, a quick double-barreled crazy martini, both involving, well, I guess now one's a former member of Congress. Real quickly, yesterday, the Interior Secretary was confirmed, Ryan Zinke, the former congressman from Montana, former Navy SEAL. Today was his first full day on the job, and the new Secretary of the Interior showed up for work riding a horse, which, tells you that he knows what it's like to ride a horse, that he's in touch perhaps with the issues out west and ranchers and that sort of thing. So I think we've got a good guy in the position. Jim, it's definitely cool imagery. As long as it didn't cost me more as a taxpayer than if he had just gone to work the normal way, I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture. He's got 2 U.S. Park Police folks with him. I don't know if that's the standard security complement for somebody who's in the Secretary of the Interior. Or just whether it's I don't know if they're afraid some other horse is going to sideswipe him, cattle rustlers or what's. I don't get the feeling Ryan Zinke could handle something like this. Look, this is purely symbolism. This is all optics, but it's fantastic optics. I've already been thinking about, and I'm sure the environmental groups are going to give some response of, and the horse you rode in on. This is what people who like to joke around on Twitter live for. Because obviously, Greg, when asked whether Zinke should make a habit of this, the horse responded, nay. Somebody else said that, asked who the current Secretary of Commerce is, the horse said Wilbur. And one of my favorites, a contributor to Senator Shoshana, who's not actually a senator, said that she expects tomorrow he will bring an entire herd of cattle with him to the Department of the Interior. The lunch special, by the way, tomorrow in the Interior Department's headquarters building is beef barbecue. So look forward to that, Department of Interior employees. Look, all in all, I don't think it's going to be a habit of his, but nonetheless, it's a nice way to make an entrance and demonstrate it's a new era at the Department of Interior. Biggest headline of a politician riding a horse in Washington since one of my favorite factoids. President Grant one time got a speeding ticket while riding a horse. I don't know what the speed limit was, but great story. Where do you think he parks it all day? That's a good question. They probably have the recharging stations for the electric cars and all the normal ones, handicapped. Is there a little trough for the horse or something? I will bet that he does not take it home. I think there was probably a park police guy waiting for him at the Department of Interior who then rode the horse back, and he'll probably go home the conventional. Horse traffic in the afternoons in D.C. Are you kidding me? Just easier to take your horse on the metro, I think. So. Oh, they'd love that. All right, on to the other crazy martini now. Jim, we know that the Democrats are playing a lot of defense in 2018. There are certain states that just seem absolutely right for the picking. You look at West Virginia, maybe Indiana, Montana, hopefully, Missouri. And another one is North Dakota. Heidi Heitkamp was kind of a surprise winner for the Democrats in 2012. Trump obviously won the state by double digits, significant double digits. And so you think, well, if we get the right Republican candidate lined up here, this could be a good Republican pickup in a year where there's a lot of good opportunities. Kevin Cramer is the Republican at-large congressman for North Dakota. The population is such that the entire state has one congressman, so that is naturally who you would look to. Well, he did a radio town hall on Wednesday, and he was talking about the Trump speech, and this guy calls in and asks what the congressman's reaction is to Democrats sitting through most of the speech. And so he talked about ways that while the Republicans opposed Obama, that they still were championing different things. And then completely unprovoked, he talked about the attire of the Democratic women.
Did you notice how poorly several of them were dressed as well? You almost, Scott, it is a syndrome. There is no question there's a disease associated with the notion that a bunch of women would wear bad-looking white pantsuits in solidarity with Hillary Clinton to celebrate her loss. You cannot get that weird.
That tactic was pathetic, Jim, but you know that's going to turn into an ad no matter what race he's in next year. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're a politician and your job is to represent people, resist the urge to make fun of somebody because of their appearance. We all think it. We probably all do it, hopefully not in front of a hot mic. But deep down, we really shouldn't do this. And then, it's shallow. It's all stuff. Even if, no matter what you think of the white pantsuits, and I'm not going to confirm or deny that I concur with his assessment. I'm just going to say if your job is to win office, your job is to be to win 51% at least, and ideally as many votes as possible. You don't want to come across as being petty and shallow and taking cheap shots and stuff like that. So, tisk, Congressman. Hopefully this will not blow up into a giant issue, but yes, I think it's safe to say we can count on Democrats to remember this and try to make it an issue come 2018. So, next time, delete that audio and hopefully no one will ever remember it. You probably don't need to worry. Democrats would never dress up in a white pantsuit himself. So, you know what? I take it back. Nobody can look good in this. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, Greg. Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. And remember, right now, 3 Martini Lunch listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free trial. And join us on Friday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.